We are live on a Thursday. It's the 6th of March. Welcome inside the vault for a Ravens lunch hour live stream. It's brought to you by our friends at Mantis Sleep. I'm Bobby Trossett, as always, joined alongside my co-host and partner, Sarah Ellison. We've got a lot to cover today over the course of the next hour. We are under a week away from the start of NFL free agency. Todd Monken recently sat down with the guys on the lounge, the Ravens official team podcast. And Sarah, when you get him at the podium, it's one thing. When you get him in sit-down form, it's pure entertainment. So we're going to have several snippets, several takeaways, including the bold statement that he had to say about his quarterback, Lamar Jackson, and maybe even taking a look at what version 3 looks like of this offense, being that Todd was extended. He talked about the importance, that how meaningful it was that the organization thought highly enough of him to be extended. And I think we all agree. We feel pretty highly of Todd Monken getting ready for his third season in Baltimore. DK Metcalf has requested out of Seattle. We'll take a look at that. It kind of came out live while we were on the air yesterday, so we decided to sink our teeth into that a little bit more, and we'll have some thoughts on the fit, the finances, so on and so forth. And again, just more activity pre-free agency that we'll have to comb through as well. And we got to update you guys on our channel memberships, because already 20 plus deep of you have decided to get more involved with the vault. If you guys are interested in doing that as well, we've seen your feedback, we've heard your feedback, and now it is official. Channel memberships are a thing for the Vaultrons, and you can go click on the link that's included as a pinned comment in the live chat to learn more. So I am done rambling now. It's great to see you. Did I miss anything that you should all feel free to include before we get going?
No, I love this time of year. Again, it's when Voltrons and Ravens flock can dream, because all those dreams are probably going to be popped next week when the Ravens don't sign all these huge names that are out there. But I definitely want to get into that DK Metcalf conversation. Really, really happy about the response we've had so far with some of these channel memberships. We're going to have to give some shout outs, Bobby, because with the different levels, we do have a couple. We have a super Voltron, and we've got a couple Voltron pluses, which means we got to give them shout outs later in the show. And we're giving them a second time around here.
Oh, I'm just scrolling through to make sure.
Yeah. No, I did it during the intro. I don't know if you saw it, but let's give them all some love. So appreciate all of you guys and the support that you are giving to us here inside the vault. And let me tell you something, there's so much to talk about, Bobby. I know both you and I have listened to that podcast that Todd Monken did this morning. So where should we begin with it?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think we gotta shout out Garrett and Ryan. I mean, what an awesome interview this was, and I think it's not hard to get Todd talking, but let's be clear. I think he
could have a podcast like us. I mean, if you can talk for a minute, you can have a podcast.
I was gonna say no doubt, but I think that they hit on some relevant topics that we've all been really keenly aware of getting ready for year 3. Between these two, and that is the partnership of the play caller and the quarterback. And we all know how special of a season it was for Lamar. We all know how historic, to use your word that I think you coined, months back. It was transformative, and Todd certainly agrees. And he'll even go a step further in terms of the evolution of Lamar. And he made a pretty bold statement. Listen to this.
It's always in him. It's just, I think it's a two-way street. Like. Mm-hmm. How much are we doing that allows that? And how much of that have we repped enough where it hits his brain to get to it? Because you do have a certain amount of plays that are good versus all.
Right.
Where you're up at the line of scrimmage and we're going to run this no matter what we get. Whether it's a split by receiver, a motion, a shift, an RPO, a protection, something that we're going to run no matter what. So it's not as if there might be a route change, but there's not as many of those as someone would think, to where you just, I'm just going up there and I'm going to change it. No, we played New Orleans when I called it in Tampa my last year there in 2018. Dirk Cutter was calling it first years. We played New Orleans the first game, and we beat them pretty good. But Ryan Fitzpatrick probably changed like 8 to 10 of the plays, and some good, some bad. And at the end of the game, I'm like, can we just run what I call? Like, for God's sake. So there's give and take. And the quarterback has to take onus of that and want that, because the moment that they change a play, they're now on the hook. Some guys like that and some guys don't. Like if I change a route concept or if I change a run, or if I change anything of what we've done to protection, I've now become part of the play caller, and I have to live with the decision I made, if that makes sense. And not everybody wants it. Lamar does want that, and Lamar's gotten more and more comfortable with that, and he's really good at it. It's just, we just got to continue down that road. And with that, I think he's only going to continue. It's hard to say that. I think he's only still, the year that he had, and I still think he's just scratching the surface of where he's headed. And it may not statistically show up that way, but I just know he's only scratched the surface in terms of, not as an athlete, not smart. It's just, he's a much, much better, from when I got here, not only his diligence, but the coaches throwing the football, progressing, all those things that he always knew he was capable of. But now he always thought that way, but now it's really starting to come around, if that makes sense, and we try to do whatever we can to help facilitate that. And he does understand that's what we're trying to do, for him and for us.
So, Sarah, to be clear, that was an answer to a question that essentially asked, hey, what do you see from Lamar at this point in terms of how he's responded to the command that he's been given, that he's earned within the confines of your offense? And we know that there are so many layers to that. We've seen the flexibility, the freedom, the creative freedom, and really the reins handed to him at the line of scrimmage. We've seen the ability and the willingness to check in and out of plays. And so I should have done a better job of setting up that first clip. But what you see here on screen, I think is what we really want to sink our teeth into. And that is Todd sticking his neck out there after a historic season. And inarguably Lamar's best as a pro. He thinks he's just scratching the surface. Your thoughts?
What's funny is you say that he stuck his neck out there, but I don't think he did. Now, on the surface, you can understand why it feels like he's sticking his neck out there, because this is what should be a 3-time MVP. And the insane part about it, Bobby, we've talked about this many times since the Ravens finished their season after that divisional loss. People say, well, what gives you hope? Like, what gives you hope that Lamar's tried, 7 times, but hasn't been able to get over the hump and make it to the Super Bowl? And I say it every single time. It's that his trajectory continues to go up. There is never a plateau with Lamar Jackson. Never a plateau. And you can take this all the way back to him coming out of the draft, and then people saying, should he even be a quarterback? Yes, he proves he can be a quarterback in the league. And then it's like they get beat by the Chargers in the playoffs. Oh, they found the blueprint. Oh, wait, no, you did not. And then it became, oh, well, all you got to do is blitz him. And then he figures that out. Oh, well, he runs too much. So you bring in a new offensive coordinator. And it's like, oh, wait, no, yeah, he can pass. We thought he was only a runner. And then it becomes, oh, well, Lamar just takes what's given to him from the offensive coordinator. He's really not playing chess at the offensive line. And then Todd Monken empowers him, and then he gets even better. And then it gets to the point where a quote unquote supposed to be running back has the all-time best touchdown to interception ratio ever in 2024, which is one of the reasons why he was robbed of that 3rd MVP. So it could be considered coach speak for any other player that's been around and has been an MVP 2 times already. But we've seen it with our own eyes. And people who said, oh, well, he's not going to have a long career because he runs so much, from the beginning has underestimated how he sees the field and how he sees the game and the mental part of it. He does not even close get enough credit. And then so for Monken to say the growth that he's had from when he just started, so he has 2 years, how can you not believe it when you see him getting better, even when he's won all those MVPs? So to me, he's not sticking his neck out. He's just saying how it is.
You want to know why I refer to it as such?
I'm sure because he's already a should be 3-time MVP player.
I refer to it as such, sticking his neck out there, because it's going to be awfully hard to surpass those statistics, the statistical milestones that he hit last year. Now, in fairness, maybe Todd's referring to the big picture, right? Statistics aside, he even went as far as to say that.
Right.
He may not be able to achieve what he did. It may not be measured statistically moving forward, and who cares? We've already seen what he can do statistically. And wow, if Lamar does surpass himself in the coming years from this past year, statistically, great. But I think Todd's looking at this big picture, full evolution-wise, what's still to come, the full maturation process of a quarterback that he's now worked with for a couple years, and my gosh, they've accomplished quite a bit together. So,
well, and to that point though, where it may not be statistically, it needs to be there in the postseason, right? We've seen the statistics on the turnovers, and when the Ravens don't have the turnovers in the playoffs, they win. When they have the turnovers, they lose. And I've seen stats specifically to just Lamar's turnovers, and we've seen Lamar grow in the postseason too. So so whether it's like, to your point, stats aside, let's see that growth even more, not just from Lamar, of course, but we're talking about Lamar right now, and have that growth even more. And if Todd is correct, and I believe he is, then that's how they get over the hump.
by the way, you're making me think of, and we don't have this snippet just because, by the way, this is an hour-plus long conversation that these guys had with Todd, so we had to pick and choose which snippets we wanted to share and kind of break down. But one of them asked, I think it was Garrett, maybe Ryan asked Todd, hey, what is something that we don't see that you see that Lamar brings to the table? And we've heard this before, but listening to Todd talk about the way in which Lamar sees the field, I found to be really insightful. Like he just was so complimentary of his vision. And again, we all know we've heard color analysts for years now wonder mid-play, mid-broadcast, how did he see that? Or how did he feel that defensive back? Or how did he feel that outside linebacker from behind him, because he's looking down the field? And so I just think that if there's another area that maybe he doesn't get enough credit for, and you're talking about, the game within the game, which is for certain, maybe it's his overall vision and just how much he is a field general out there and the ultimate point guard, while also being the shooting guard too, because he gets his when he gets an opportunity. Last week in Indianapolis, Eric DeCosta referred to Lamar as a stakeholder, as a partner. You and I spoke about this after, in our instant reaction, if you will, to Harbaugh and DeCosta's podium availabilities last week. And I thought Todd did a good job of sharing his perspective on that, and maybe, just maybe, took a look at an early glimpse of what year 3, version number 3, will be of these two in their partnership coming up in 2025.
And like I said, I think the first part of it is, it's probably unfair to say it has a connotation of putting it on his plate, like not you, me, or whoever. It's really just, like you said, a partnership. And that can always continue to grow. I've got to do a better job of communicating always with Lamar. Because it really doesn't matter how I see it or what I like. He has to like it and have to see it and communicate that with the players. That's the way it, even when I was playing, small college football, like if a player likes a play, they make it work. Like they find a completion, that's the same with him. What fits what you like, and coming to some common ground with that, and him feeling comfortable with it. And I think that's just built over time. And so he's earned that right, because not only is he a great player, but he's really smart. Like there's nothing that Lamar can't handle. It's just a matter of doing it over and over and over, us doing it to where it's second nature to him, getting to what he likes, what we like, what we think is the best way to attack. Maybe not just a team, but a certain aspect of the way they're defending us. And now that's what you do all week. And it's really, we're not that far. You're just trying to still bring it along to another level. Like I said, what's the third year look like?
Sarah,
nothing that Lamar Jackson can't handle.
Right. That's certainly a takeaway from that.
Sure.
Another one is It brought me back to the wording that John Harbaugh used a couple years ago when this search was on, right, for the post Greg Roman. And he referred to it as casting a wide net. I think he spoke to dang near double-digit amount of candidates, a lot of whom are head coaches now. I remember Dave Canales being one of them. He's in Carolina right now. And I think at the time he was in Seattle. But my, oh my, did they make the right – did John Harbaugh make the right hire? You hear the way that he speaks about not only his quarterback, who, by the way, at the time of his signing, the decision that he made to go from Georgia, having won back-to-back national championships, right, declining the opportunity to go for a three-peat and instead joining Baltimore without his quarterback signed at the time.
That's right. I
to
forgot
think about
that.
the loyalty, the vision, the belief. And 2 years later, he's had a slew of different head coaching opportunities, at least in the form of interviewing after seasons. He has developed Bateman and Zay into both guys just in the rear view of career seasons. He's got a running back that is an ascending player at 31, and he's found a way for the tight ends to stay involved as well. I mean, he's just built this, and as you said it a couple of years ago, right, he found a way to build that marriage between the two phases of his offense, and it's flourished, and they haven't gotten to where they want to be yet. But my goodness, you got to think that they're knocking on the door with him at the helm.
Todd Monken knows how to coach. He's a good coordinator, but he also knows how to coach. We didn't pull this soundbite, but probably one of my favorite parts of that interview was when he was talking about how, from a coaching perspective, from a fan perspective, if somebody's not producing, you're like, get him out of here. Get him out. Bring me in somebody else, right? Get Patrick Queen out of here. When we're talking about him in his second or third year, or get Odafe Owe out of here when we're talking about him in his second or third year. And Todd's like, well, from a coaching perspective, what are we paid for? Right? Like, we're paid to develop these guys. And then he listed off a number of guys who finally took off in their fourth or fifth year. And then it's like, oh, now we don't even enjoy the fruits of our labors because we can't keep everybody that we've developed. It's like, you're welcome, NFL. Remember, the Ravens have the most drafted players in the NFL right now, whether it's in Baltimore or on another team.
That are on active rosters.
That are on active rosters that were drafted by the Baltimore Ravens. No other team in the NFL has as many drafted players on an active roster throughout the NFL right now. And part of that is, yes, the drafting history, but the other part is that you develop them. So when you listen to the way he talks about Lamar, I know he loves Lamar, but he's really good at that with everybody. Where he's like, remember at one point during that rant, Bobby, he's like, at some point when, the offseason's over, it's like, hey, coaches, we're done. We're done. Yeah. And so you can't go to Eric DeCosta and be like, oh, this guy that you drafted, it's not working. That's not what he's paid to do. Remember, under Greg Roman, who did really well with Lamar Jackson in 2019, hit a plateau. Right? It hit a plateau. And then it was like, this is one of the greatest talents of this generation, and you're hitting a plateau. And then enter Greg Roman, and it's not Greg Roman's doing, but he didn't stop Lamar from hitting next levels. Right? It was always within Lamar, but you have to have like an environment, a culture, a system that allows him to be able to do that. And so when I was listening to that part of it, and you have a coaching mentality, so a lot of times when players aren't playing well, fans will get upset with John Harbaugh or Todd Monken and be like, what are you talking about that Daniel Fa'alele is going to make it? What are you doing? And it's like partially coach speak, but it's also partially they have to believe it. Because it's their job to believe it, and it's their job to bring it out of the players. And Todd Monken is excellent at doing that. And I'm looking blurry. I know there's a snowstorm outside, and it looks like my Wi-Fi is being a little bit funky right now.
No, you're good. Do what you got to do.
Yeah.
There's a level of humility. There's a level of expertise. There's a level of old school coaching. A lot of folks in the live chat are commenting on today that, even off season, Todd Monken has a raspy voice. Yes, off season and in season.
That's 40 years of coaching, yelling and projecting out. Yeah, his voice. I would love to hear what his voice sounded like when he was like 20.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like people in the live chat are like, he must be a cigarette hound. No, he's just a coach. I can't say I know him personally like that. Maybe he is a cigarette hound. I don't believe he is. But there is that certain level of human to him. And you feel that throughout interviews. You feel that throughout these sit-down conversations. And so I just think that has to trickle down throughout the organization. And he's so forthcoming with what the overall mission is that while there's a lot of mouths to feed, it seems as if he's done an incredible job, a masterful job of keeping dynamic personalities in check. And obviously that starts and ends with the type of mindset that you have as a dynamic personality, as an alpha. And we know that the locker rooms are comprised of alphas up and down, top down. But that's easier said than done. And so the way that he's built that and sustained that camaraderie within the organization from an offensive perspective is you cannot put a price tag on that whatsoever. And I for one, I know you're with me, cannot wait to see what year 3 looks like. And by the way, I think this is a good segue. We've got to get an ad read in here in just a second. But with the amount of mouths that he has had to have fed these last couple of years, hearing him philosophically talking about how he wants to spread the ball around and the way in which he conveys that message was really interesting. And that's what's coming up in just a second here. Today is brought to you by our friends at Manta Sleep. It's the official sleep mask partner of the Vault. And these sleep masks give you a lot of things. True 100% blackout for a deeper sleep. You've got C-shaped eye cups for unbeatable side sleep comfort. Zero pressures applied to your eyelids or lashes. You got advanced materials that are built in with ventilation for unmatched breathability. And if you go to mantasleep.com, which you can click on that link that's included at the top of the show notes, if you're interested, look at all the different masks options they have for you. The built-in Bluetooth option, the Manta Sleep Mask Pro, the silk mask, the original sleep mask. You got your weighted mask with calming pressure for deep restorative sleep. The cool mask with a little bit of therapy built in to smooth your eyes and sinuses. The steam mask with heat and relaxation features with it. And of course, the kids mask as well. The white noise machine. I mean, once you start toggling through the website, you'll realize just how robust their site is. And that's why we continue to partner with them. We really believe in them. We feel like our audience, you guys, our Voltrons, continue to believe in them as well because they want to keep working with us because you guys seem to enjoy them. So we appreciate you. As always, if you find something you like, use our discount code at checkout. That's VAULT10, VAULT10. That'll get you 10% off your next purchase. And hey, hopefully it'll enhance your sleep. And if it does, just know that it's helping us out as well. When you support our brand sponsors, you're supporting us. So thank you to Manta Sleep for the continued support. And that brings us, Sarah, to, unless you wanted anything else to discuss about the Monken before we snap to the next snippet. I loved it. I loved the inside look here at his philosophy when it comes to keeping everybody happy around the offense, or at least trying to.
I want every guy to touch the ball a lot. I'm for you, but I'm also the most important thing is that we score and we win. Like, sorry, there's nothing in my contract that says I get more money for touches or touchdowns. Mm-hmm. If it did, I would go towards that. Mm-hmm. Like I get their incentives. I mean, I get it. If I get an extra $100,000 for every touchdown pass, we'd never run it. Ever. I mean, we just wouldn't. I get it. Just like them, I get it. They get paid based on their skill set. Yeah. But I'm paid to score points and for us to win and do everything in our power to, under the guidance of John Harbaugh and our organization, that what gives us the best chance to win. And that includes getting those guys the ball, but not specifically just because I'm getting them the ball, if that makes sense. Yeah. But they're awesome that way. Our guys are awesome that way in terms of handling that because it's not easy. Yeah. And in the world we live in fantasy, and we live in terms of just their self-worth of touching the ball. Like an old lineman, they don't look at it, I only pulled 3 times this week. Well, that doesn't matter to them, you know. But to skill guys, touching the ball, scoring, all those things, It is who they are.
You want it.
It's who they are.
Yeah, totally.
It's who they're known and what they get paid for. So our guys were great. They're awesome. And we've drafted and developed the right kind of guys that allows us to still be that way. Try to do the best we can to put the ball in the end zone as often as we can. I was in Jacksonville a few years ago, and I was coaching wideouts. We played the Colts. We won the game. Oh, we lost the game. But one of the wideouts I had, and I'm not going to get specific who the people were what, but one of our wideouts had 7 catches, 100-something yards, touchdown or 2, and we lost. You're going to grade your guys after the game. Well, there we got together with personnel and the owner, and we talked about it. And I said, this player, had his best game as a pro, blah, 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 whatever. And one of I think it was the general manager said, well, I don't know, if this young man is really a team player, because after the game, he didn't seem too upset that we lost. And in my heart of hearts, I'm sitting there going, if that player has 7 catches, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns every game, and we lose every game, he's a multimillionaire and a first ballot Hall of Famer. If we win every game and he catches 2 balls for 15 yards and no touchdowns, he's making the league minimum. He's out of the league within 3 years.
It's a short career, right?
It's part of what we do. Basketball players want shots. Baseball players want at bats. Skill players want the ball. Mm-hmm. And so you have to understand that, and I do. And you hope that they understand what you have to do.
Right.
But I want guys that want the ball. I'd be disappointed if they didn't.
Yeah.
If they didn't want opportunities, I would feel less of them. And yet you can't say, well, I don't want as many players because they're going to all want the ball. No. I'd rather manage. I'd rather try to manage a lot of really good players that are all capable of really helping us win and move it and being explosive and try to manage their touches than not having enough. Going, God, I wish we had some more guys that could touch the ball. Mm-hmm. But you do have to weigh that.
You perked up. You perked up there at the end. I knew you would.
Well, yeah, I'll get to that part in a second. First of all, I love it when people can see outside of themselves, right? Like, he understands the incentive structure of skill players. He understands it's in your contract that if you have 12 touchdowns, you're going to get an extra $1 million or so, right? Or if you make a Pro Bowl, you're going to get another extra $1 million. Or if you get so many rushing yards, right? Like, he understands that. So he doesn't demonize anybody that wants the ball. At the same time, he's like, I don't make any money. You know what I mean? When you get those things, I can't make this, the Baltimore Hollywood Browns or the Baltimore Derrick Henrys or anything like that. And so as long as players understand that his job is to score as many points as possible any way that he can, then everything's all good. But at the end, and I hope we remember this when we hit the DK Metcalf section of this show, that you don't say, I don't want too many good players, Bobby Trossett, who the first reaction yesterday was, well, Zay Flowers isn't going to get the ball if DK Metcalf is here. Okay, so let's just remember that. You take the problem of having too many mouths to feed rather than not enough, or you have just enough and then an injury comes along and then you're in trouble. So you always never be afraid of having too many great players.
To be clear there on the end.
Yeah,
okay.
Clear it up.
Oh, and what was it? It was you just said that I would be worried about Zay's overall involvement in the offense. What I meant yesterday and what I said was that
I didn't use the word worry. I repeated what you said. You said Zay Flowers isn't going to get the ball. That's what you said.
Well, look, I said DK was going to the entire offense would run through him.
I mean, I'm sure that's what he would want, but a good coordinator like Todd Monken would just make sure that they score enough points to win the game. But would DK Metcalf want that? Yes. Does that scare Todd Monken? No. Does it scare Bobby Trossett? That's the impression you're giving me.
No, it would bringing DK into the equation would be a little nerve-wracking because even Todd, who's proven to be masterful at managing all of the personalities in this locker room. I don't know if adding DK Metcalf to that equation would be feasible. Hey, we'll get to that when we
He
come
may
up.
not be feasible, but not football. Football fit wise, it's feasible.
Football fit. Well, of course you want DK Metcalf on your team. I'm certainly not going to argue that.
But you argue it. You did.
What it would mean to a Baltimore offense that's heavily invested in tight ends and running backs is begs the question. Would that create issues?
Sure, but like deal with it. Deal with it.
Maybe I will. You revisited that yesterday. How did I know that you would revisit that yesterday?
Because I told you it's a pet peeve of mine. So when you said it, it set off alarms.
I didn't, but I didn't say it in the same context that you.
You sure did too. We brought him up. We'll roll the clips back. I'll bring in the receipts. You sure did. You said, "Oh, Zay Flowers isn't going to get to touch the ball." That's what you said.
Well, he'd go from a number one to a compliment of the offense. Well, Jay, if you have DK on your offense, I think we'd all be okay with that. But just saying, when you add him into the equation,
people trying to compare DK Metcalf to Deontay Johnson. First of all, DK Metcalf is a better player. Number two, he'd fit better as an X receiver. And number three, you'd want him on the field. That's why you would give him up to do it. And number four, I don't think he's at Deontay Johnson's level. So on that, Deontay was passed over by several teams. Seattle isn't saying goodbye. DK wants to go play for a contender. Not the same. Not the same.
For sure. Yeah. Not even close. Now, another player, as we continue the Todd Monken takeaways, another player that obviously took him a while in the interview to get to, just because he's a storyteller. He's got different quotes that come to mind. He is very long-winded, which we appreciate in this space for sure. But of course, maybe some of last year happens, but maybe not to the extent that it did without King Henry in the backfield, and gearing up for year number 2. Todd's perspective, and this will be video. This had to be a video snippet. We couldn't just settle with an audio clip of Todd Monken describing when Derrick Henry walks into the building. Watch this.
Addition, not only a great player, but a tremendous pro and a great teammate. And it's just different. I'm going to start off with this. Like, Lamar's been around here now. Everybody knows Lamar, and, but Lamar in some ways looks like everybody else. Like,
I don't know.
Just looks like everybody else, just a human being walking in the building. There's just.
I see where you're going now.
Well, and Lamar talks. Derrick doesn't talk, and he looks like a Greek god. So that's like this. It's like a mythical creature in a good way.
A unicorn just walked through the front door.
Here he comes in and it's like this big guy, contagious smile, doesn't talk. He just works, and it's like you don't know what to make of it. It's like, okay. Hey, Derrick, it's good, buddy. And then you watch him run, and it just like, wow, like it became like this mythical, like Lamar. What do he compared it to Cars or something? I'm not going to go that far. Like it's a movie. Like I look at it like I'm a Greek god walked in, and it's like almost different because he looks different. He acts different. He's a pro. It's important how he prepares, how he takes care of himself, how he's ready for the game. You can't even put a price on that of what it looks like young guys looking at the way he goes about his business and the way he carries himself. And then, like I said, to see the big guy run, it's so cool, in that regard from that end of it. But I thought along with that, he's a team guy. Sure, does he want the ball? Yes. Does he want to run for a ton of yards? Yes, because it helps us win. And he believes in himself as a player. He's never said anything to me, even though there's probably plenty of times that he would want the ball more often, which I respect. So does Isaiah Lockley, so does Mark Andrews, so does everybody. But I respect that about all of our skill guys. They're very understanding of when you have multiple skill guys. But Derrick is awesome in that regard.
And he went on to compliment the staff, the George Gotze's, the War Hops, the several other members of his assistant staff that went into coordinating a run game and blocking schemes and so on and so forth. But we had to go video, and you were listening to it audio the first time around, so I figured you'd get a good kick out of that. Him describing as a Greek god. Did I refer to Dennis Pitta as a Greek god, by the way?
I think you did.
I think I did.
Something like that, yeah.
But here's the funny part. They're both Greek gods, but built differently.
For different reasons, for sure. First of all, what's hilarious to me is going back to the beginning of the clip, I had the exact same reaction as Ryan and Garrett when at first he said, "Oh, Lamar looks like everybody else." And I was like, wait, what? Like, because obviously when we watch him on the field, he's different. He's one of one. And then he had to clarify. He's like, "No, I mean when like he walks in the door, they're like, oh." And like there was like a collective, like they were holding their breath, and then they like sighed. They were like, "Are we all seeing the same thing here, Todd?" But it's true. Like Lamar walks in, and like he's not.
Well, he's 6'2" and slender.
Yeah. And then, like if you put him out with a group of like Joe Schmoes, then he's gonna look like an athlete. But I'm saying, but like when you walk in with everybody else, it's not like Lamar's like the guy. If you put all the athletes up, and you're like, "Oh, I bet Lamar," you know what I mean? Like he doesn't carry that kind of physicality or anything like that. But I thought it was hilarious that like I just had the exact same reaction, and then he had to clarify. But he plays like a Greek god too. The way he stiff arms everybody and throws them to the ground and outruns people at his size. Like it's absolutely insane. So, and I just love when he was like, Hey, Derrick, buddy, how you doing, buddy? Are you good? Oh, yeah.
And then at the tail end there, which kind of gets back to the clip that we just referenced a minute ago about spreading the ball around and managing the group, he kind of went in and said, hey, quote, "He's never said anything to me, even though there's probably plenty of times that he would want the ball more often, which I respect." And so that just brings you back to maybe the first half of the season, Sarah, where we are all kind of wondering about the usage and whether or not they were conserving him and waiting for January and waiting until the cold months. But if anybody wants to question, if anybody's thinking about questioning the character of Derrick Henry, who's accomplished just about every accolade and feat in the NFL for his position, think otherwise, because on the other side of 30 now, again, with a bona fide Hall of Fame first ballot career ahead of him, it's the selflessness, I think, just is what sticks out.
Absolutely.
The last thing before we shift gears to DK Metcalf, which I have a feeling that's going to be spirited between the two of us, not that it already hasn't been, is Todd Monken's extension. He'll be in Baltimore for the foreseeable future. We know that after that news. What that come down when I was sick? Were you solo for that?
I might have been. Yeah, because it was after like all the head coaching vacancies had been filled around the NFL. And then after that, he was given an extension. That was about the time that you were sick. Yeah.
So a multi-year deal. Todd obviously has had at least a couple interviews over the last 2 years throughout the hiring cycle for head coach. And man, if you don't think that obviously all these guys one day want that one of 32 type of lifetime achievement, which only comes around so often. But if you listen to what you're about to listen to right now and don't think that this dude is happy in Baltimore, I got nothing for you. Here is Todd Monken on the extension, what it meant to him, and where he wants to go moving forward.
Well, first off, there's a number of reasons why I wanted to be a part of the Baltimore Ravens. Organizationally, from Steve, Ozzie, Eric, John, as good as you're going to find in the NFL, structurally, organizationally. And then you combine that with having an elite quarterback, or at least the time I was hoping that we would sign Lamar back, because he wasn't still signed. So you're hoping that you would put yourself in a position, because in order to win in the NFL, structure in your organization and a great quarterback, that will allow you to be consistent over time. So when you have both of those, you're like, man, I want to be a part of that. So that was worth leaving a place like Georgia to come to. And I've said it all the time. I mean, if today they called and said, I hope that's not the case, that they're letting me go tomorrow, it was still worth it. It turned out, very rare times in your life, it turns out the way you'd hoped. That it was exactly how you thought it was going to be. And that's a blessing, because that gives you a chance to win every game every year. And that's where you want to be. It was huge to be able to get an extension, because you want to feel like you're doing a good job where you're at, but it's still what's next. It's just like, what's next game? What does that look like? And I'm very, very fortunate that they wanted me back. I mean, it's probably the best way to put it, and wanted me to be in charge of the offense, and that Lamar, because that's important too, that he's comfortable with what we do. And I think our staff does a great job. They make this thing go and the players make it go. I just get to call it and get a bunch of credit that I don't deserve, because those guys are a big part of it, and the players are the number one in the organization. It's all the things that you want to be a part of. So, like I said, I'm very fortunate, because ultimately, even though ultimately I think everybody wants the challenge of if they get an opportunity to be a head coach in the NFL, but I got one of the best jobs in the NFL, head coach or any job, because if it's ultimately to win, be part of a great organization with an elite quarterback that gives you a chance to win the Super Bowl every year, pretty sweet.
Right.
Harder to beat the job that I've got, really, to be honest. I mean, and we've got outstanding players around him and a great staff. So if you're sitting there going, what really is the most important part, what's most important about what you do? It's all those things that we have here.
Sarah, you passed on the opportunity for that elusive three-peat at Georgia, and 2 years later, sure seems like he's at peace with his decision.
Yeah, I'm sure, he would have loved to have had a head coaching job. That's why you're in this business. You want to keep seeing growth and this and that. But if he wasn't going to have a head coaching job, he sounds like he's super happy to be here. And quite frankly, I'm happy he's here. I love the growth of, we've talked about already, the growth of Lamar Jackson in the offense with Todd Monken at the helm. And I think the Ravens were fortunate, bad for him, but fortunate for the Ravens that he didn't get a head coaching job, because, that could set things back a little bit. And any coordinator would be happy to have Lamar Jackson, but as we've seen with Greg Roman, some coordinators could get in his way. And so I'm happy to see him back. I'm happy that he gets to continue with T. Martin as the quarterback's coach. Like, it's just all the main pieces are still there. And so as long as everybody's healthy, the Ravens should be right back in the position to be able to redeem themselves in that divisional round again.
And maybe that head coaching opportunity will come one day. I know some in the live chat have said, hey, is it going to be in Baltimore? I don't know. Don't hold your breath on that one. Should we rip through some super chats before we get to DK?
Absolutely.
All right. Yo Jitsu says Voltrons mount up. So wait, just to be clear here.
Mount.
Okay, that's I think so as well. Yeah. But we got to get the spelling down here, Yo Jitsu. We're going to be a stickler on you here. It's Vaultrons. Voltron. Sorry to be a stickler. Dream.
And yes, I saw in the chat, somebody was like, Bobby and Sarah, are you aware of the cartoon Voltron in the 80s? And the answer is absolutely yes. I was an 80s kid.
And I plead the fifth.
Oh, well, Google it.
I will.
Just like a transformer. It was the first thing. In fact, when people started suggesting Voltron in the chat long ago, this is by far, via the chat, the most popular. It wasn't the only popular one, but Voltron was the most popular. And the first thing I said it reminds me of the Transformers because of Voltron.
You mentioned
back in the 80s. Yeah.
Yep. For sure.
This is from Dreams. I'm going to say it. No Joey Bosa. He misses too many games. We'll get to Joey Bosa later on.
Yep. And another one from Queon. Just seen on Bleacher Report that New England believes that Ronnie Stanley is the, quote, apple of their eye if he hits free agency. I think other teams would
going to be the apple of many people's eyes.
Would agree. I think Kansas City, based on reports, would agree. How about C King?
Y'all think Tez could be wide receiver 3 next season? That toe drag touchdown he had was real nice. I hope he stays healthy and gets more chances. #Vault. I wouldn't put all my eggs in that basket. I would prefer the Ravens go out and get a veteran. And then if Tez shows more upside, then he can always take over that number 3 spot. But I would not bank on that.
Sod Blitz 34 says, been busy at work this week. Haven't been able to listen live, but some of what I heard is appalling. Got a week's worth of super chats coming your way.
I saw him. There's a ton coming. He's feeling very generous today, and he's got things to get off his chest.
And here they are. You get us started.
He says, number 1, La Canfora is right. The cap is what I say it is. It's so wrong. Browns owner. I know cash spending is cyclical, but if Philadelphia has 3 times as many guys getting $15 million, we're not budgeting right. That's a huge difference. Again, it's just not true because he's saying it's cyclical, but then picks out 1 year. He cherry picks 1 year. Last year, Eagles were number 1 in cash spending. The year before, the Ravens were number 2. And the prior 3 years, they averaged at number 3. So at some point, you have to reload. And Howie Roseman has already asked his fans to be patient with this offseason because they're going to have to get rid of some guys. They can't re-sign everybody. They will get some people. But he said, essentially, you got to rob Peter to pay Paul. It's got to come from somewhere. So they took their chance. They hit. And now they've got to reload. And Howie has already sent that message to his fans.
Part 2. Some listeners do understand draft pick value. It drops after pick 10 and flatlines mid-third round. If the Ravens traded all 8 picks, they have after the third round, it would only be worth a high round 2 pick. And then part 3, which he's referring to as 2A, I'll let you take.
He says these picks are far more valuable to trade for a current player. Remember, 15 years ago this week, round 3 and round 4, Anquan Bolden in round 5, but EDC won't do it. Well, yeah, he would part with. It's like if we're talking about DK Metcalf, would he give up a 3 and 4? Yes, but it's on the back end of what he wants in a contract, so it goes hand in hand.
Yeah, and as we'll discuss in a couple of minutes, Seattle's going to want more than a 3 and a 4. Sod Blitz 34, part 3. You all act like last year wasn't a unicorn year for 79. For 4 years before that, he was a waste of cap space. Sign him for 20 plus, and he's more likely to play 5 games than 17 if EDC was as good as you guys. And I'll just continue here because it's in the same thing. If EDC was as good as you guys act, he would have tagged and traded.
Tagged.
As it comes in, tagged and traded him while his value was at an all-time high. Knowing EDC, he'll walk and go to a competitor, and we'll get nothing. And part 4 for you.
Love you guys, but it seems like a lot of blowing sunshine and not critical analysis. Remember, if it was EDC's call alone, we wouldn't have picked Lamar. It'd be blowing sunshine if we didn't come with facts. There's a difference. But appreciate Sod and all of his super chats there.
Well, who does he want lining up at left tackle this year? Who's that?
Yeah, but I do think he makes a fair point that it was that one backing up about Ronnie Stanley. I think I felt like is a good point, is that it was 2024 that was an outlier, not 2024 and 2019 were like the outlier years. And so problem is like you said, there needs to be a plan, and it's hard to see one without Ronnie.
Yeah, Sod, if it's shifting Roger over to left-hand side, great. But what's he's fortified the right-hand side. Yeah, he's fortified the right-hand side, and the left tackle market is where it's at right now. Ronnie's worth that money that he's projected to make.
And by the way, like, people act like right tackles, like the way they act, and maybe they don't think it, but the way they act, it comes across as like, well, left tackle is really important and right tackle's not. Let's remember, like, pass rushers are now moving around everywhere. Like the right tackle is going to see TJ Watt just as much as the left tackle, so like, that's fine. You can cover up left tackle with Roger, but then you still have a tackle problem. And there's nobody that's going to be any better in terms of veterans that are available at left tackle. And then you're putting yourself in a desperate position heading into the draft.
Period. Appreciate you, Sod. Asmodeus says, that's why I voted for Voltrons. I think your Transformer reference. Sea King for you.
He says, Bobby, I'm sending you a Voltron action figure with those tankards.
We owe you an email, Sea
Yes.
King. We owe you an email back. Thank you for that. I'll be ready. And Queon, did I mention that Jaden Higgins is from South Florida, continuing his campaign here for the Iowa State wide receiver? Queon, we appreciate you. And thanks to all of you for being with us today. We're about to talk DK Metcalf. We've got over 2,400 of you concurrently joining us. So please like the video on your way in. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Hit that notification bell so you can be notified of when we're dropping our daily live content. And maybe, just maybe, consider checking out the pinned comment we have right now, which is the official launch of our channel memberships. So we've already got 20 plus of you strong. We may be at 30 already by the end of this episode, but it's a great way to get involved in the channel. There are perks that come along with the investment. And obviously it is a way to support the channel as well, which we appreciate. We heard your feedback. We talked about it a lot in our meetings, and we just rolled it out for the first time this week. So thanks to all of you. DK Metcalf time.
DK Metcalf. So obviously at the end of yesterday's show, Tom Pelissero and others had reported that DK has asked for a trade. And we don't need to guess, Bobby. We don't need to guess and wonder and pontificate about how Lamar Jackson may feel about one DK Metcalf, because a few years ago, April 3rd, 2022 to be exact, a Ravens fan had put out one of those photoshopped photos of DK with Lamar, both in Ravens uniforms. And boy, does it look good. It sure does. It sure would be nice to look at Lamar and DK Metcalf on the same field. And so this fan, tweets that out and says, how would you all feel about bringing in DK Metcalf? Personally, I would love it. The more weapons for Lamar, the better. Well, Lamar replies to that, and he tags DK. And he says, slide with the rocket ship emoji. He says, we got them guys, but you can slide too. We welcome everyone here with open arms. You definitely one of them. So there's no doubt whatsoever that Lamar Jackson would welcome him with open arms. And also what would be, I just to put this in here, Matt Harmon, who's the creator of Reception Perception, he has made a living off of doing, wide receiver breakdowns. He's phenomenal. I like especially going to him for the draft when you don't know guys as well. But he says no matter where you rank DK at his position, he's a good perimeter receiver in his prime, who now might be available, might be the only such player this offseason. And then finally, remember when Todd Monken did his interview with Todd McShay?
Eric DeCosta,
What did I say? Todd Monken?
Yes.
Eric DeCosta did an interview at the Combine with Todd McShay, former ESPN draft analyst, and now is off doing his own thing. This is what Eric said about the wide receiver position. Very interesting.
We drafted Zay. We drafted Bate. We've allocated a lot of resources. We don't have that. The one piece we've missed on is that big X presence. We've never really had that. We've tried to find that guy. That guy doesn't go on trees, right? They're hard to find those kind of guys, right?
Oh, the one thing that we've never been able to hit on, we've put in a lot of resources, is that big X presence. Then friend of the show, Huddle Up Films, Jason, he retweeted that out yesterday and says, oh, EDC, I know they don't grow on trees, but I know one that's available for a trade right now. So Bobby, maybe we can sparse this into kind of two conversations with DK Metcalf, because we probably agree more than what we let on. I just didn't like the one comment. But football fit wise, DK Metcalf is exactly what this organization has been looking for, football wise. Eric just said it. They don't grow on trees. We haven't been able to hit on that big X wide receiver. He's very happy with Zay. He's very happy with Rashad. He's happy with the pick of Hollywood Brown, even though he didn't stick around. He thought, he nailed that pick. And he has been able to turn around the narrative, which was true, that the Ravens can't draft wide receivers. He's done that with those three, all with first round picks. But he hasn't hit on the big X because they don't grow on trees. Lamar Jackson says, we would welcome you with open arms. We got guys, but you're that guy too. We would welcome you. He is exactly what the Ravens have been looking for. They don't grow on trees. So they're not usually available. And here he is available.
What's interesting is he says they haven't hit on them. He hasn't taken a lot of swings at that specific category at that position. We know he's taken
because they don't grow on trees.
They don't grow on trees.
Yeah.
But you just you brought me down memory lane here in terms. Okay, well, where has he taken swings? And Miles Boykin comes to mind, but that didn't work out.
And that was a fourth rounder.
And he was a fourth rounder, and I don't even know if he's still in the league, to be honest with you. I know he was with Pittsburgh at one point. Mm-hmm. But outside of we know the wide receiver position has been plentiful for EDC since he took over for Ozzie in terms of taking swing after swing after swing in the draft. But maybe that is what he's just getting at. they don't grow on trees, and they're being very selective with how they pick their best player of it, maybe the best player available, instead of, hey, this is an X that we really like. Maybe he'll be available in later rounds, but we're not going to get him now just to fulfill the X, checking that box. So, and then this also brings me back to Dennis Pitta. Dennis, it wasn't all long ago, a couple of years ago, that I was like, look, the Ravens are dying a slow death. This is the missing link that they need. They need this true X, right? And I was kind of outspoken about it, and I do still think it would put their offense on another planet, especially with a DK talent, even though it's not feasible. We'll get to that in just a bit. But then I asked Dennis point blank, and we talked about this in New Orleans. I was like, hey, Dennis, do you think that the X receiver, is that the missing link? Has that been the missing component in Baltimore's offense? And he didn't even have to think about it. He's like, no, they have everything they need. Now, maybe we're having a different conversation here. Would it put it on another planet? Would it put it on another level? Maybe. But Dennis's words stuck with me.
Yeah, we've debated this a couple times. I don't really agree with your like interpretation of what he's saying. Like, I agree. Like, big picture, I agree with him. Did the Ravens need like a big X receiver to win the Super Bowl last year? Did they need that X receiver to win the Super Bowl when they played against the Kansas City Chiefs and, forgot about their rushing attack? No. So in that sense, Dennis Pitta is right. Everything that they needed to win the Super Bowl was in the room, but they didn't. And so when Dennis is, to me, the way you asked him that, it was like, can you blame that? Can you blame it? No, I thought Eric DeCosta put together 2 Super Bowl caliber rosters. But does that mean he's saying, don't go get an X? I don't think so.
This is where our interpretation.
Let's bring him back on the show. That he's saying, you honestly think he's saying, don't go get an X wide receiver? I can't believe you're even considering that. Dennis Pitta, don't go get an X wide receiver.
This is speaking about a former tight end here. It's a tight end's perspective. He knows how tight ends are valued in Baltimore.
So just to be clear again, you're going to put more words into Dennis Pitta than what Lamar Jackson tweeted at DK Metcalf?
Put words where?
Put more weight on it? Put more weight on Dennis Pitta saying, oh, they have everything they need?
That's apples and oranges right there. Come on. Of course Lamar wants him in the building.
But I think because I'm not talking about finances. We're going to get to finances in a minute. I feel like 2 days in a row now, you like football-wise are trying to make arguments to say no DK Metcalf. Now, we can talk about personality, we can talk about diva, and we can talk finances next. But I'm like surprised football-wise that yesterday you bring up Zay Flowers won't get the ball enough, which is absolutely the opposite of what Todd Monken just said, which is like, I want that problem all day long. Okay. And then today you're bringing back up Dennis Pitta. So when we're having a football conversation, not his personality, not his money, you've made 2 arguments to say no DK Metcalf.
Well, for the Zay thing, going back to yesterday, a real thought in my mind is, what does his role become in the offense with tight end centric and running back centric philosophies that are already in place, not to mention your quarterback who can do both through the air and on the ground?
Well, let me be clear. If DK Metcalf is in Baltimore, I strongly believe Mark Andrews will not be.
Well, yeah. How else?
So that's where we're maybe thinking differently.
Yeah. I was good. Well, in a lot of ways, right? We're going to we keep teasing the finances, what we promised we're coming up on in a second. How do you get DK to Baltimore without potentially acquire,
exactly. Like the 2 cannot coexist.
Yeah.
And so what you would be doing, which you can do with Todd Monken, because everybody keeps talking about, well, Baltimore's like tight end centric. Yeah, because they have Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. But if you take one of the tight ends out of the equation and then implement DK Metcalf, they're going to be more 3 wide receiver sets rather than 2 tight end sets.
I'm totally receptive to that.
Right.
Totally
and Todd Monken has coached those offenses nonstop. Now, some people would even argue, which they keep doing to Lamar and keep trying to put him in boxes. They're like, well, Lamar likes his tight ends. Yes, absolutely. But if he had DK Metcalf as an X wide receiver, I think he would be able to make some completions there. Like, I think he would be okay.
Should we get to the finances?
Yeah. Well, we can, because you want to move on, but I'm shocked by you. I'll just say that.
I'm listen. I'm having
I'm
conversational.
shocked you are not like saying yes, absolutely football wise. Bring DK Metcalf in here, not considering anything else. That's shocking to me.
It just gives me a slight little bit of pause. Not questioning the talent, not questioning the explosiveness, not questioning anything that he's put on tape. But in terms of how that would seamlessly transition in Baltimore, I just have certain questions
Can
based
you
on the
just
way they're built.
explain it though? I guess that's my thing. Is I would love to hear. I'm trying to understand your concern about that.
I have explained it.
You haven't,
It-
because is it really that like Zay's not going to get the ball as much?
No, but you just went with, hey, in the event that Mark Andrews were to be traded in this potential, again, could be a fantasy land acquisition, then yes, of course, then it makes a lot of sense. But I'm under the impression that Mark is on this team next year. And so, you're talking about 2 star tight ends in Andrews and Likely. You're talking about 2 complementary wide receivers in Flowers and Bateman, not to mention a Hall of Fame running back and Lamar. They have what they need.
Yeah, they do. They do. But it hasn't gotten them over the hump yet.
Not
so you
yet,
got to keep
because
tinkering.
of execution. Because of a lack of
Execution last year, which DK Metcalf could potentially, we don't know, but Mark Andrews dropped the ball and he fumbled. Would DK Metcalf do that? Right? You just said because of execution. Is that not a big part of Mark Andrews? Is he not a big part of that?
In January, unfortunately, yes.
That was a big reason why they got knocked out. His fumble and then missing that ball. That doesn't excuse the other turnovers. Lamar had 2 turnovers in the first half, but Mark Andrews is a massive part of that. Now, we'll never know if DK Metcalf would do something different, but you got to tinker with it.
But we would also never know if Mark's 11 touchdowns or whatever it was, which was a single best, would DK have been able to replicate that in Baltimore's offense and put them in that position in January? Maybe.
DK healthy is going to have double-digit touchdowns if he's healthy all year.
Maybe.
Absolutely.
Finances.
Absolutely. I'm
I explained it to you.
You did.
I
now understand.
As if I don't have an answer.
I got your explanation now.
Now
I understand it. Before I didn't. Now it's just you don't think the Ravens need them.
To the finances.
To the finances, which we probably will agree on.
How can you not? How can you not agree on this, right?
I love you, but you are not running my football team if I ever get one.
You're unbelievable. Give us the finances.
Diana Rossini reports yesterday that the Seahawks are seeking a 1st and 3rd round pick for Metcalf. Also, Metcalf is eyeing a new contract worth $30 million per year. She says multiple teams have inquired. Bobby, as Pete Briscoe pointed out, there's no chance in Hades, in HE double hockey sticks, that Seattle is getting a 1st and a 3rd for Metcalf and then has to pay him this $30 million mega deal. He says maybe they're going to get a 3rd. Josina Anderson reports last night, I'm told there's a team willing to give at least a 3rd round pick. There's a team willing to give at least a 3rd round pick for DK Metcalf. So I think they're right. I don't see them getting a 1st and a 3rd. This isn't like wide receiver. I just think is too much of a dependent position. But also big time is because he wants that contract. But let's stick to the financial part of draft picks. Would you, Bobby Trossett, who doesn't even want Metcalf, give up a 3rd round pick for Metcalf? Would you give up a 3rd round pick?
Oh, a 3rd rounder. Now we're talking. The 1st and 3rd is, the 1st and 3rd is colossal. I mean, this is a dude. Let's see. He was drafted in. Of course. How can I forget when he was drafted? It was 2019. That was when. I'm not gonna do. I did it yesterday. I'm not gonna do it again. We know who the Ravens went with in the 1st round that year, and the guy's he's put forth a lot of statistics, a lot of production in Seattle. He is coming off. He didn't get to that 1,000-yard mark in 15 games last year with Seattle. He hit 992. 66 receptions, but a 3rd rounder is obviously a lot more appetizing than a 1st and a 3rd, knowing that new contract would be on deck too.
Yeah, we would both do that. I don't know what the Seattle Seahawks tight ends needs are. I probably should have looked that up. Who's their tight end right now? Can we look
Yeah,
that
I'd
up?
have to look at their depth chart. I will right now.
But to me, it'd be like Mark and maybe Mark and a later pick for DK could maybe be something like that. But yes, I would give a 3rd round pick for DK Metcalf. Now, we're definitely having a problem with that $30 million contract. And that's where all the debates we've just had doesn't even matter, because they're not going to, the Ravens are not going to pay $30 million a year to DK Metcalf. And I don't know that he'll get that from anybody, but I think he'll get close. I think he'll get close.
Noah Fant is
Noah Fant
and AJ Barner, your 1st and 2nd string tight ends in Seattle.
Yeah, and then if you're losing a big body like Metcalf, maybe you're becoming more of a 2 tight end set kind of a thing with Mark and Fant there. So, meanwhile, in terms of reports of who's interested, according to Ian Rappaport, the Texans, Patriots, and Chargers are 3 teams that he named. And then Ben, I want to say violin, but Volin. Very well respected reporter for the Boston Globe, by the way.
Yes.
I'm just not as familiar with how to pronounce his name, but Ben Volin, he said one team to watch in the DK Metcalf trade sweepstakes, the Buffalo Bills. And over here, Fox NFL, they add on maybe the Raiders, Green Bay, and Cowboys. Point being, and the reason why I bring all 3 of these in here, nobody mentioned in the Ravens.
Yeah.
And I mean, as much as he would absolutely fit, in my opinion, with the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, that $30 million is just not going to happen. I've said this before and I'll say it again. The first time the Ravens give a big wide receiver contract to somebody is going to be somebody that they drafted.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
One of those mega deals.
And by the way, there is a little bit of overlap there in that rap sheet report on teams. This kind of just brings us back to yesterday when we referred to Fowler's report on who might be interested in Davante Adams. And I believe the only of the one of these 3 that was also included in that report were the Chargers. Am I correct on that? I think it was the Chargers. So
might be. I don't remember. So
clearly, but just kind of all that I'm saying is Chargers look to be in the wide receiver market.
Yes.
Somebody to complement with their rookie, Lad McConkey. And, speaking of the market, it's starting to become pretty saturated here. This NFL Live graphic has listed out the notable wide receivers that are available in free agency or via trade. And so at the top of this list, of course, just as of yesterday, is the aforementioned DK Metcalf. Cooper Kupp would have to be via trade as well. Chris Godwin, Davante Adams, Stephon Diggs, Tyler Lockett, Amari Cooper, Christian Kirk, Hollywood Brown, Keenan Allen, Darius Slayton, and DeAndre Hopkins. So, Sarah, this is it's plentiful.
It's plentiful. And here is Adam Schefter talking about the way GMs around the league are going to look at this, where DK is saying, I want $30 million, and the Seahawks are saying, I want a 1st and a 3rd. And so Adam Schefter is putting on his GM hat and how these guys will react to those requests.
The question that every general manager is going to have to ask himself is, are we better off surrendering all the trade compensation that we're going to have to give up to Seattle and pay DK Metcalf a new deal, or are we better off taking on a different type of free agent wide receiver? Could we sign Davante Adams, who's older, or a receiver like Keenan Allen, who's older, not have to give up the trade comp, not have to give him a contract as rich? That's a decision that every GM and every team that's in the wide receiver market is going to have to make at this point in time. You take a look at all the free agent wide receivers who are out there or who are expected to be out there, including Cooper Kupp. That's what I'm talking about. Do you want to go give up, we'll call it, a 1st-round draft pick or a 2nd-round draft pick for DK Metcalf, pay him an average of over $30 million a year, when you could go sign Amari Cooper or Christian Kirk or Hollywood Brown or Stephon Diggs or Davante Adams or Chris Godwin or Cooper Kupp? Is that what you want to do?
Okay, so like last week, Bobby, we had a video headline that said Ravens get good news in the wide receiver market. This is exactly why. The good news just keeps coming, right? Because Deebo Samuel was available. A team that wanted another wide receiver, the Commanders, got him. So now the Commanders aren't looking to go out there to get another big name, right? And so you add DK Metcalf. We've added Devontae Adams since the last time we spoke. There's Stephon Diggs, which everybody's forgotten about because he finished injured, right? I mean, he
was
mentioned
really
Cooper
productive
Kupp.
prior to that, by the way.
Yeah. Now I don't know where Chris Godwin is with his return from injury and how the recovery is going. DeAndre Hopkins. I keep talking about Amari Cooper, and I'm just saying, like, it's not. This is my prediction. I'm not. Listen, I would love DK Metcalf. I think I've made that clear today, but I don't think the Ravens are going to do it. Here's my prediction: the Ravens are going to get one of these guys closer on the right-hand side for a crazy good deal, because everybody else will have blown their money on these bigger names like Metcalf or Godwin or Devontae Adams, maybe Diggs. And they're going to find, because they need another veteran, if they do indeed say goodbye, which it looks like it's going to happen, if they say goodbye to Nelson Aguilar, they're going to want a veteran in the room. And there's plenty of guys on this list that fits that bill. And they're going to get an absolute bargain. And everybody's gonna be like, "Here we go again. Eric DaCosta is bargain shopping again." And you could have had Metcalf, or you could have had Adams, and you wind up with, Amari Cooper or something like that. But I that's my prediction. That's exactly how it's going to go down.
Well, I like that because you had us go through an exercise last month, and I rode with Darius Slayton. The New York Giant, who's set to hit free agency here, and I did it because of what you just outlined, kind of projecting that might be where the Ravens are in the market. And if teams that are desperate or that are cash heavy and ready to go roll up the Brinks truck for the left-hand side of this list, then maybe somebody falls in their lap. And I think that we're lockstep on that one. And hey, if you can bring in a Darius Slayton type, I think he gives you more than Nelson Aguilar has been able to give you the last 2 years. And I think that's an upgrade. And I think he pushes Bateman. I think that'd be a good fit.
Well, that kind of brings us, you kind of mentioned there for a second about, trying to get Ronnie Stanley in. We opened yesterday with our show talking about Ronnie Stanley and how the Sharks are circling. And this is before we even started seeing more and more reports about how bloodthirsty, if you will, to use an analogy, these Sharks actually are. Because Nate Taylor, who writes for The Athletic for the Kansas City Chiefs, covering the Kansas City Chiefs, he is co-worker of Jeff Zrebiec, does what Jeff does, but for the Chiefs at The Athletic. And he tweeted this out. He said, new story, Joe Thuney. Remember, we covered this yesterday. Chiefs traded Joe Thuney, their all-pro guard, who swung out to tackle last year because they had so many tackle issues. They traded him over to the Chicago Bears. But what led up to that? Well, here's Nate Taylor saying that Joe Thuney did everything the Chiefs asked of him and more. What's next for the Chiefs? They plan to sign Trey Smith to an extension and acquire a new left tackle. Here we go. Targeting Ronnie Stanley. Like, they're making room for Ronnie, and he hasn't even hit the market yet. And I do not want to see any world where Ronnie is protecting Patrick Mahomes and is no longer protecting Lamar Jackson. And I get what Saad had said earlier. I think he's right that 2024 was more of the outlier of his career. He's had two great years and then other years where he's just been battling injuries. And so Jeff Zrebiec had, quote, retweeted that story and said, yeah, there's people targeting him. And by the way, I know you saw a report that the Pats are really all in on him, right? Eye candy or whatever it was. So people are responding to Jeff being like, well, the Chiefs don't have as much cap space right now than the Ravens. So the Ravens could maybe win a bidding war. And Jeff's like, well, it's not about winning a bidding war. He said, the Ravens know exactly what they could do to create space. It comes down to this, and this is to Saad's point. Given his age/injury history, are they comfortable paying him the kind of money it will require to keep him from these other teams? Do they view that as a wise investment? And so we heard them say they were probably going to keep Ronnie. They were feeling pretty good at the combine. We still have a few days. It's Thursday. And then TC writes to Jeff, though. He goes, but Jeff, we're not in the tampering period yet. Like, how can they be doing this? How can the agent already know what his market is outside of the Ravens? He doesn't have permission to talk to these other teams. And Jeff goes, I know. I'm sure those dozens of meetings every agent had last week in Indy were trained on players already on that meeting or already on the team's rosters. He's like, I'm sure they just kept it to that. Every time he met with the GM, he's like, we're just talking about the players that's on your roster, right? Yeah, right. So we're going to see. I think there's a valid point where it's like if Ronnie's agent is saying, hey, we know we can get more here at the Chiefs or at the Pats or whoever else. And the Ravens are like, but we're giving you a fair deal. And they're like, but this is our final chance at a big deal. And we took a pay cut last year. And then the Ravens might be like, okay, well then Saad's equation comes in and is like, well, was 2024 an outlier? Can we really count on that going forward? Or do we take that money and start building elsewhere? So it just all depends on what is being asked on Ronnie's side.
Well, they took a big gamble last year on the offensive line, and it paid off after a while, even though they took their lumps early. And if he gets the bank thrown at him, which all indications are showing that he is a highly, highly coveted player right now ahead of free agency, then the Ravens have given you belief that they'll figure it out. It's just, man, the surefire thing is right in front of you. It's right here. This is your homegrown player. He spent a decade with you. He's been through thick and thin. He's coming off a Pro Bowl caliber year. He was historic in 2019, which is beside the point because we're 6 years removed from that. But man, it's right there. And what is he right now? He's healthy. He's healthy right now. We don't know if he will be 6 months from now.
Right.
Right? We don't know if he'll finish.
But you don't know that about any player.
Exactly. Yeah. And who's to say that another Roger Rosengarten, if you were to shift him off to the left-hand side, would come in there and give you that kind of fortification that he gave you from week 2, week 3, whenever they turned to him on the right-hand side. I would not be willing to. It's just a gamble. It's a
gamble, and it's funny, Bobby, because as much as I was saying from a football perspective, how much I think that DK Metcalf would fit the Ravens, but if I had to set my priority list of where I am spending my limited money, I'm putting it at Lamar's protection on both bookend tackles, whichever, you know what I mean? Again, you can move Roger, but I don't care. My priority is to protect Lamar over that third wide receiver added to the group, and he's a heck of a wide receiver. And as Matt Harmon pointed, he doesn't come around very often, but I'm putting a priority at a tackle over that third X wide receiver as awesome as Metcalf would be. So to me, protection is what I want. I don't want to see Lamar with pass rushers bearing down on him and causing potential injury. Protect Lamar. That's the first priority over that third wide receiver. As good as he is, I am prioritizing Ronnie Stanley over that.
Couldn't agree more. I love Nate Campbell's comment. Just stood out to me in the chat. If every team's willing to take this gamble, or at least multiple teams that reports, we should as well, he says. And that hey, they're telling you, the market's telling you how they feel, how it feels about Ronnie Stanley. Let's get to some quick hits. We appreciate you guys for being with us today on this Thursday. And this was a big kahuna yesterday. Max Crosby, well paid, handsomely paid, as he has been for years now, but he will be even more so. The Raiders are signing him to a 3-year extension, $106.5 million, 91.5 of which is guaranteed. Makes him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. And as Schefter goes on to write, for the third time in 4 years, the Raiders are addressing the contract of their cornerstone player, this time cementing his relationship with the Raiders for the foreseeable future. Talks a little bit about the representation. And Sarah, despite not having a quarterback right now, or at least a plan, a concrete plan, at least they have their star. And I mean star. We got a good look at him week 2, didn't we?
Oh, we sure did. A better look than I wanted to have. I didn't want to see that. But here's he is a different, he just thinks different, and you can't help but respect it. I was listening to him, a snippet of him in a podcast where they were asking him, like, dude, you've been here for a while. Nobody could accuse you of not being loyal and trying to build up the Raiders, all that kind of stuff. They're like, is it tempting for you to just be like, hey, do what Myles Garrett is doing and say, hey, I want to go out and try to win a ring? And he said, no. He's like, I do not want to go out ring shopping. He goes, because it would mean nothing to me. He's like, it would mean nothing to me that I go and join something that was already built and then I ride their coattails and then go and get a ring. Now, that's one way to look at it. You could also be like, hey, they're missing a piece and you could help put them over the top. And then you go and win-win. But I think his more point was like maybe a Chiefs who have won several years. But he was like, no, it would mean nothing to me. He's like, I want to build the team that goes on and wins a Super Bowl. I don't want to go join one and then get a Super Bowl ring that way. And I was like, he's got principles and I don't, you can't hate that. You can't hate that whatsoever.
Well, what's ironic about it, Sarah, is that both players, both stars in their own right, have been through what and back in their respective organizations when it comes to dysfunction, head coaching vacancies, carousels at quarterback. I mean, I'm talking about Cleveland and Vegas, and so Myles and Max have both dealt with all of that. But Crosby, to your point, he's a cerebral player. By the way, he does not drink. He is sober. I love that. He is as.
Has he ever, or is this a new thing?
I don't know that. I don't know if it was like a Darren Waller thing, like a necessity. I know he was more so on the drug front, but there's something about Max that his clarity comes through because he has a podcast, and I think you just referenced it a second ago.
Yeah.
I listen to it relatively often, and I was definitely listening to it when he was before and after the Ravens game. Just a cerebral player, so incredibly dominant, and obviously not going anywhere outside of Vegas anytime soon.
So I just Googled it. A week before the world shut down due to the COVID-19 pandemic in the spring of 2020, Max Crosby's world opened up. That's when the Las Vegas Raiders defensive end began a month-long stay in rehab for alcoholism and is now nearing an 18-month milestone of being sober. That was back in 2021.
Uh-huh.
So he started it in 2020. So it sounds like about 5 years now.
There you go.
So, good for him,
man. Yeah, I was going to say good for him and good for Darren, right? Both of these guys are clean and living their lives.
Absolutely. Well, more pass rusher news. We talked about this potential a couple weeks ago, but now it is official. The Los Angeles Chargers announced that they released Joey Bosa yesterday. Now, there's somebody, when healthy, that has been a game wrecker, but that when healthy part is the key words because he has been injured and injured a lot. My feeling is you could probably get him on a modest deal. But I also don't know that the Ravens are targeting a veteran just because I feel like they think they have that with KVN. And what the Ravens' real priority, and again, they, if you can get him on a modest deal, I wouldn't be against it, but you certainly can't rely on him. You can't put all your eggs in that basket, I should say, given his injury history over the last couple of years, especially. But the Ravens need to restock with youth. And Ojabo was supposed to be that, but he hasn't materialized. And so both Owe and KVN are in their final years of their contract. And so I don't know what they're going to do with either one of those guys after this year, but they need to restock. And that's going to have to start in this draft come April.
No question. Elsewhere, Aaron Schatz, NFL analyst, creator of DVOA, tweeted out that injuries played a huge role in the 2024 season, according to he and his team's AGL totals. Not sure what that stands for, Sarah, do you? The 7 teams with the most injuries missed the playoffs. 9 of the 14 teams with the fewest injuries made the playoffs. And look who found their way in, Sarah, who were very healthy. And you got a photo of Scott Elliott here, who's the strength and conditioning coach in Baltimore. He took over for Steve Saunders a couple years ago when those two sides parted ways. What is AGL? I'll look up AGL unless you have it in front of you.
Well, no, I closed the link. I could have looked it up. Oh, it's adjusted games lost.
Thank you.
So, which is a really good, I love that stat because it's, how many, and it's probably adjusted. I didn't look into it, but this is what I'm guessing. is that you can count up how many games were lost due to injury. So say like there weren't a lot of injuries last year, but if we went back to, a year that Lamar was injured, you'd add up, he missed 7 games or whatever it was. And then J.K. Dobbins missed 17 games. So you add those and you just start adding them all together. And then you add them up and compare it to other teams. Now, adjusted games lost, I'm guessing he weights it based off of who you are, right? So if Lamar misses 7 games, but TJ Tampa misses 7 games, it's not the same weight, right? It's very different. So I haven't read his definition, but that's what I'm guessing he does. So with the adjusted games lost by the Ravens, Bobby, they ranked number 1,
on
the
both
healthiest
sides of the ball.
team. The health on both sides of the ball, ranked number 1 on offense, ranked number 1 on defense.
Wow. And
so
total, obviously.
And obviously total, number 1. They were the healthiest. Now, I want to give you never give as much headlines or anything like that to positive news, because think about all the different headlines and people talking about when the Ravens were the most injured back in 2021, I believe. That was a season from hell. Okay, that was the worst when we had 2 ACL injuries to Marcus Peters, and who else was it? Like in training camp?
It was back-to-back non-contact plays, Marcus and then Gus.
Yes. Yeah, you're right, Gus.
I don't know how that. I mean, well, how do you not?
Done.
But how do you not remember that? It was such a freak thing.
That was well done. I don't know. I couldn't remember that was Gus.
They were doing walkthrough stuff. It wasn't even a padded practice, if memory serves. And on non-contact back-to-back plays, you lose your star corner, at least your starting corner, and your backup running back.
Yeah, no, it was bananas, and Steve Saunders got torn apart for it, but also because players gave him an F in terms of grading him, and then a couple players spoke out against him, including to you, Derek Wolfe. And so you want to give listen, I don't know how much weight. If you ask Qadri Ishmael, like, you can give a lot of weight to the organization for preventing it. Mm-hmm. To me, it's hard to do that because football is almost 100% injury rate. Like, I don't know that I ever came across a player. I think Carr, what was his first name? The Carr, our cornerback that we got from Dallas one year, Brandon Carr. I think he had never missed a game. But so what is it, like a 99% injury rate that everybody's going to be injured at some point?
Right.
And so there are clearly things you can do to make it better, but I don't know how luck and just the way you get hit sometimes doesn't play into it. Or is your team more youthful versus you have more veterans? And so usually the veterans are going to break down more, all that kind of stuff. So, but because Steve Saunders was absolutely torn apart, we might as well celebrate Scott Elliott. So that's another thing, Bobby, where you love to see that stat, but it also is like also a gut punch, because it was like, are you ever going to be that healthy again when you go into the playoffs?
Right. They can change.
2019 they were.
Yeah. So. Oh, they were incredibly healthy. Yeah, in 19. And by the way, speaking of 19, I don't believe you mentioned this last little statistic on the right-hand side. Keep in mind, this is up from the 19th overall ranking in 2023. So not only were they healthy in 24, but significantly improved from 23. So good stuff there from Shaq.
Jeremiah W's keeping receipts. He's like, no, it wasn't an F, Sarah. It was an F minus.
Yeah.
My bad.
You know what we didn't even realize was a thing on the grading scale. Yeah, an F minus. That was news to all of us. And we'll finish with Mrs. EDC. You brought this in.
Yeah, let's just a friendly reminder this time of year. Somebody had reached out to Lacey and said, please send this to Eric, LOL. And it was a Josina Anderson tweet. I'm assuming it was the one, maybe a third rounder. I don't know which one he sent. And Lacey quote retweets that and says, friendly reminder, as free agency approaches, Eric does not want my advice or opinion. Heart emoji. So yeah. I know people are shooting their shots, but listen, obviously Lacey knows about her husband's job because it's so public and whatnot. But if people were giving me notes about my husband's job, I would just be like, "What? There's nothing I can do for you. Like, there's nothing."
Well, definitely not for Trevor. I mean, it's one thing if you guys are getting advice on players and whatnot that you study, but Trevor's a cardiologist, so unless you're trained in that.
I got nothing for you. People always expect me. They're like, people will come to me with like heart issues, and I'm like, you know that I was not the one who went to residency and fellowship and all those other things for. I mean, he was basically trained for 17 years. I'm like, I'm not the one who does the surgery. Okay. I can't give you any advice. None, zero.
Man, exactly. And it goes without saying though, right? Like I love how interactive she is online and whatnot. Mrs. EDC,
Yeah.
friend of the show, viewer. She said she just texted me the other day. She's fired up for our free agency content coming up next week. So
Awesome.
we are as well. We appreciate the entire DaCosta family. Some super chats in closing here.
Yeah, and we should probably give some shout outs to a couple our Voltrons Plus and Super Voltrons.
Beautiful.
So
And we'll pick things back up here in order chronologically. Another one from Sod Blitz 34 who says we didn't have a backup plan for the time he missed, but we still made the playoffs without him. Sarah said he shut down Watt, but Watt is on the left. Now he's referring to Ronnie,
but I never said Ronnie shut him down. In fact, I said the opposite. I said Watt goes on both sides of the offensive line.
I know Roger saw a little bit of him this year.
But I get what he's saying. Like there wasn't a backup plan, but the point is it's like saying, why didn't you have a backup plan for Lamar Jackson? It's not quite to that level, but the supply doesn't meet the demand. And so it's like, why don't you have somebody that can just seamlessly step in for Lamar? Because he's Lamar.
Yeah.
And most teams, some teams don't even have a legit starter because the supply doesn't meet the demand. And it's the same thing with tackles and left tackles. Like, yeah, there's a reason why Ronnie Stanley, everybody wants him right now. There's not a lot out there. And so it would be unrealistic to think that you're not only going to have somebody as good as Ronnie, but somebody even just slightly below Ronnie to back him up.
Sarah Sod is dumping money into the super chat.
Here we go, Sod, all day long. He says, he's still going. Is this a continuation from the last one?
Yes, sorry about that. I should have kept reading it.
What was the end of the last sentence?
Sarah said he shut down Watt, but Watt is on the left
side of the defensive line. Roger shut him and Garrett out in the back-to-back weeks. Yeah, Roger did well. P.S. Looked for 14 bull rush, found a few on running backs, none on a tackle. Found a few, none on a tackle. No, I agree with you. I think that Roger Rosengarten did a good job, 1,000%. But again, you move Roger over, TJ Watt just goes to the other side, or Myles Garrett goes to the other side. Again, you need two.
Sod, thank you.
Is there more from Sod?
Yeah, there's no. Sorry.
Okay, let's go.
I was making sure that we were on track here because Sod's dumping so many in that we got a lot to get to. Davon says, bruh, this is EDC's time to make it right. He passed on DK when we got Hollywood. If this isn't a sign from above, I don't know what is. C King wants Bobby to get Tilly to make a guest appearance.
Where is that?
Tilly is currently on the floor below me. Tildo, come here. Up here. Hold on a second. The lengths that we go to here. Come here. Over here. Up. Come on. Up here. All right. There we go. Okay, the traveling dog.
Hi,
what are you doing? She was napping. She didn't know what the heck's going on.
Yeah.
Get her eye bugs out here.
Wake me up here, buddy.
Say hello to everybody.
There's 3,000 people watching you right now.
She's fun to have on the road. Crashing with my cousins here in St. Pete. So been fun to get to know the neighborhood a little bit.
It's awesome.
But yeah, thanks, C King. And another one.
Is DK seen or heard anywhere saying he wanted that much? You don't think he might take a cheaper contract to be an automatic Super Bowl contender? No, that's obviously from Diana. Most players don't go on record with how much. In fact, I don't know if I've ever heard a player say exactly how much they want. We usually, the vast majority of the time, we get that information from national reporters like Diana.
Yep. And, look at this. Look at this. We have our first gifted channel membership. Yojitsu has gifted. So now I'm wondering, who is Yojitsu gifting this membership to? And how can we figure that out?
Wait,
It's
did
funny.
Yojitsu get it or did he give it? You see what I
So,
mean?
oh, yeah, I do. Wait,
Maybe he was gifted the membership,
so here's what's funny about this.
or she.
We're learning as everyone's learning right now.
Cameron's
So,
like, wait, somebody gift me one.
so this is kind of what we're excited to start tinkering with, is the gifting, like out of the generosity of your own hearts. If you guys have friends within the chat, it's
Right.
possible to gift others a membership. So now I'm wondering what you're wondering: was he gifted, or was he the gift giver?
Right. And now Not a Fan is saying, oh, we can gift some stuff. He's like, let me get one. Let me give somebody one.
Okay, Cameron says Yo-Jitsu gifted it to 77 figures.
Oh, nice.
I don't know how Cameron knows that, but maybe we can figure it out on the back end.
Yeah.
We appreciate you guys. And this is a good reminder. This is probably a good time to maybe update everybody, Sarah, on what we got going on. And also,
Oh,
shout out
Yojitsu said it's random.
oh,
Wait, that seems odd.
wait, that's kind of cool if that's the
Well,
case.
I think it's cool if you just want to do it. You're like, I don't really know anybody, so I'm just going to gift it. But shouldn't you also be able to be like, hey, I don't know, like just because we call her name all the time. Hey, I want to give to Tila because she's here every day. You know, like
Teal's in the house right
I
now.
wonder. And this is funny because this is new to us, so who knows? Maybe these things are possible.
Yeah, everybody's saying that it's totally random, so that's cool.
Interesting.
That's actually really like that. So 77 figures. Congratulations on becoming a new channel member, and Yojitsu, thank you for gifting
Yeah.
77 figures. Cool.
Very nice. Speaking of, I'm actually just today seeing all the new members come in. That's really awesome. Like my heart is swelling with gratitude right now.
It's cool, right?
But we did say the plus members get shout outs and the super Voltrons.
Okay.
So let me see
Don't
what we're
raise
at
its
now. What was that? Oh,
Sorry, I'm doing a screen
I
share.
like to look up and it looked like Gronkowski without a shirt on. I'm like, what's going on here?
Well, what's so strange is you guys can see that this tab is currently muted.
Yeah.
So I just, for whatever reason, when I do a screen share, apparently that
Oh, it comes on.
no longer is the case.
Interesting.
So anyway, if you guys want to go check out how to become members and take a look at the Voltron level tiers that we have here in play, you can click on the link that's included in the show notes, or actually it's a pinned comment right now in the live chat. I'll also have that as a pinned comment once we finish up. But here's how you can figure it out. All you have to do is press the little toggle, the little button called join.
Yeah, you click join and then you have a choice between Voltron, Voltron Plus, and Super Voltron. You can look at the different perks that come with each.
Oops.
But one of the perks for Voltron Plus and Super Voltron is a shout out. Now we won't do it like this every time, but just because everybody's new and we're learning about this, we'll do it now, but maybe we'll do it the way we do patrons, you know, kind of give a couple shout outs every day. But I'm kind of surprised by how many Voltron Pluses we already have. So Not a Fan, Will Be Smiling, James Green, Deshaun Davis, Hybrid Theory 5, Osmodius, Dre Dog, and Nuno Alves. All Voltron Plus. And then let me see the Super Voltron, which is Patrick York. Now, one perk of Super Voltron, by the way, Patrick York, is that it says we will follow you on social media. Now, for me, that applies to Twitter. I don't really do the other ones. So if you can, don't just come at me at Twitter because my mentions are too, it's just, they're constantly moving and I may miss you. So if you want us to follow you on a social media platform, email us, please, and tell us what it is and we'll follow you. So it's BaltimoreRavensVault@gmail.com. I will follow you on Twitter, Bobby.
So let me know. Let me
Twitter,
know what account
maybe Instagram.
Whatever your account is, Patrick, hit us up. BaltimoreRavensVault@gmail.com, like Sarah said. Everything is in the show notes. We want to say thank you to all of you who have become members. Cool new feature that we've been working with. John R. giving us a parting super sticker on the way out here. And that now brings us to our patrons. Nishad and Kelly, thank you both for believing in what we're building. If you guys haven't already done so, you can visit patreon.com/RavensVault podcast to see if you'd like to join the Vault Patreon community. So we got a lot of different communities going on here. We got channel memberships, we've got patrons, we've got Voltrons. I mean, you guys are all Voltrons, so we hope that you guys are all in on our new nickname that we made an executive decision on earlier in the week. And so Nishad and Kelly, this is your monthly shout out. We appreciate you guys, and thanks for being a part of the community.
We, in 2 days, have 37 members.
Love it.
Not bad. Not bad. We appreciate all you guys. And I
And
need to
Teal's
figure out
right.
what's going on with the emojis. Maybe I've uploaded them wrong. Somebody's saying I want evil eye Sarah. There is one of those, or it's like they call it the base Sarah, where it has the lasers coming out. It's in there, but apparently I need to fix it.
Teal is right here about the whole membership, the reality of memberships. And I think what you and I, whenever we saw feedback or somebody hitting us up, hey, turn on memberships, do this, do that.
Mhm.
It really is about continued growth of the channel.
Yep.
It's an opportunity to allow you guys to get more involved. That you've given us this platform, you've given us a chance to become daily parts of your lives, even if it is a small one, at your lunch hour or your morning or on the treadmill or whatever it is, whether you watch us in real time or not. But yeah, just we appreciate it.
Oh, I have a question for the chat. Okay, so I saw Not a Fan and Abby McCormick use some of our customized emojis. Now, on my end, it comes up as words and not actual emojis. So what do you guys see?
Well, how
Do you
about
guys
this?
see them as
Ready?
words
You're
or
referring to
emojis?
this. This
Yeah.
is what we see.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is what we see. What do you guys see the same thing? Because if so, I need to fix something.
I'm sure they here's
Oh,
another
they
one.
say they see the emojis.
All right, good.
Okay, cool. So I don't have anything to fix. It just must be, because we're looking at it from StreamYard.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a StreamYard
Exactly.
thing.
We got to go to YouTube. Exactly.
Yeah. But now that we have more members, I think I can put more emojis in.
Perfect. Can't
Okay,
wait.
cool. Oh, good. I
Can't
thought
wait.
they were broken. I'm glad they work.
Can't wait to see what you come up with. Oh, what a fun day. Long show, but we appreciate you guys being here. A lot of content to comb through, obviously, with the Todd Monken interview and the DK conversation. That DK segment will be up as a best of. So we'll have that available to you coming up in the next hour or so. At 4 o'clock is typically when I'll drop that. And as a reminder, we are available in the audio only space. Never want to forget about what we're doing in the audio only space whatsoever. We have people that have been on the ground floor with us in the audio only space since the day we came into existence, and we have a new member on our way out here. Funny how that works. Dreams is like, you know what? I've already dropped in super chats. I'm gonna become a member as well. Quion down there in Virginia. We appreciate you, man. Partner, all set on the way out here?
All set.
Love it.
We'll see if people like our debate about DK.
Oh,
I don't know if does that get annoying or do they like it? Sometimes people are annoyed when we always agree on everything. Then some people are like, I like to switch it up.
Can't wait.
Know. All right.
Let's do it. We'll catch up with you guys tomorrow, if not before. It'll be a Friday Ravens Lunch Hour live stream that drops at 12 noon Eastern. Free agency begins next week, so have your notification bells on. We will be live, and I'm sure we will be live early and often. So look forward to that. Have an awesome Thursday. On your way out, if you just liked the video for us, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell. We'd be truly appreciative. And thanks to Manta Sleep for sponsoring this episode and continuing to support the channel all off season long, along with you guys, our Voltrons. We appreciate each and every one of you, whether you're a member or not. And we will catch up with you on Friday. For Sarah Ellison, I'm Bobby Trossett, signing off from this Thursday Ravens Lunch Hour live stream. And as always, thanks for spending some time with us here inside the Vault. We'll talk soon.